One of the really important parts of the process of buying a home is that we have to get the property that you want to make an offer on accepted by the bank. And we have to do that before you make any offers without finance as a condition. So if you're going to auction, this has to be done before you get to the auction room. When you receive an initial pre-approval from the bank, if you're fortunate enough to be in that position, we still need to go back and get the property approved. There is no property approved at that point normally, so we've got to go back to the bank and get that approved next. The time it takes to get a property approved is much faster than it is when we start out the initial application. Usually it only takes 1 or 2 days. It depends on the assessor that we're dealing with and the bank that we're dealing with, but it's usually a pretty quick turnaround. So we do have time to get organised quickly if we need to in a hurry. So when a bank's looking at providing an approval for a specific property, there's a couple of different things that they are looking at in particular. They're looking for any disclosures on the property, and those can be found on the draft auction or the draft sale and purchase agreement, usually towards the bottom of the agreement under further terms. One of the more common disclosures that comes up is that the property may have some unconsented work done, so it never got consent for that particular work, or the code of compliance wasn't issued after that work was completed. If that's the case, there's a bit of extra work we have to do, and we need to get the bank comfortable with the position of that property before you make an offer. Other things the banks are also looking at is they'll jump on the listing for that particular property and they'll look through the photos. And so if they look at the property and they think it looks a little bit weathered, or potentially it could have some structural issues, they may ask you to provide a building report. A building report is not required by default, but if they look at the property when they're doing their due diligence on it and they have some concerns, they can ask for that. They're also looking at indicative purchase price. So they want to make sure that what you're proposing to pay is not significantly higher than the value that they hold for that property internally. If you are going to pay more than that, they may require a valuation in support of that purchase price. There is a little bit of wiggle room there, but if it's significantly higher, then you may be required to get a valuation, and we need to factor that into the process of you making your offer. If you're looking at apartments, there's often extra work involved in getting ready to make an offer on an apartment as well. The banks want to see what's called the pre-contract disclosure statement, and that has a lot of the information around repairs and maintenance, body corp levies, etc. that the bank needs to know about before they're comfortable providing an approval for that property. And lastly, we need to make sure the property is insurable. So we need to do that for some properties before the bank will provide approval for that property. Usually it's okay to have it done afterwards, but it's always best practice to make sure that property is insurable before you make any offers on it. So when you work with an advisor, we can help you take absolute confidence into making your offer, knowing that the bank is both comfortable with you as a customer and the property as their security. And you absolutely need both before the bank will give you any lending.